I want to start with something that, it feels almost counterintuitive to everything we're taught as uh, serious adults.
Okay.
We usually frame competence as consistency, the professional who never makes a mistake,
Yeah.
the system that runs with zero variance. That's the gold standard.
Right. Efficiency, predictability, control. I mean, that's the modern metric for success, isn't it?
Exactly.
Hmm.
But looking at the research we've pulled through the deep dive, there's this uh, massive hidden cost to that kind of optimization.
Mm-hmm.
The source material argues that if a system, and that could be a human brain, a company, whatever, if it optimizes only for consistency, it becomes what the text calls a brittle system.
A brittle system.
Yeah. It works perfectly right up until the moment the environment changes, and then it doesn't just fail, it shatters.
It shatters because it has no mechanism for variation. And this is where we have to, I think, rebrand a word that most people just dismiss as frivolous.
Right.
The antidote to becoming a brittle system isn't working harder, it's play.
And just to set the stage here, we're not talking about work hard, play hard, where you go blow off steam on the weekend.
No, not at all.
We're talking about play as a biological imperative. The sources are pretty radical on this. They basically argue that play is the specific evolutionary mechanism that we use to explore the world without threat.
It's like the R&D lab of the nervous system.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
That distinction is just vital. If you look at the biology of it, play is effectively a safe mode for the brain. It's a totally distinct neurological state.
A safe mode.
Yeah. When you're in a survival state, what we might just call adult mode, your brain is wired for efficiency and defense. You see a problem, you execute the known solution. You do not experiment.
Because experimentation is risky. In a survival state, a mistake is, well, it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
If you're being chased by a predator or you're in a high-stakes board meeting, you don't try some funky new strategy just to see what happens. You do what you know works.
Precisely. High stress equals high rigidity. But play. Play flips the chemical switch. The literature describes this amazing physiological shift where mistakes do not register as danger.
Wow.
That is the superpower. When you are truly playing, the defense mechanisms that usually guard your identity, your safety, they're just suspended.
Which allows curiosity to finally replace defense. I think that's the core mechanism we need to unpack first, this idea of the nervous system.
Right.
The text says play is the only state where the outcome matters less than the engagement. But how does the brain actually know the difference? Biologically, how does it signal we are safe now?
Well, let's just look at laughter. We usually think of laughter as, a social thing or a reaction to a joke.
Sure.
But from an evolutionary standpoint, the source material argues laughter is a safety signal.
It's the all clear.
It is the all clear. I mean, imagine early humans. Someone trips and falls hard. The whole tribe freezes. Is he hurt? Is there a predator around? Then the person stands up and laughs. That laugh communicates to everyone's nervous system. I am vulnerable, but I am not under threat.
It recategorizes the event. I notice this in high-stress work environments, too. There's that nervous laughter when something goes wrong, which feels like a glitch.
Right, like the system trying to reboot.
Exactly. But then there's that genuine belly laugh when a team realizes a mistake isn't fatal. It's like you can physically feel the room relax.
That relaxation is the danger box emptying out. Once a problem can be laughed at, the brain moves it from threat, which creates a fight-or-flight response, to puzzle.
And a puzzle creates a play response.
And this is so crucial. You cannot solve complex problems in a threat state. You can only survive them. You can only truly solve them in a play state.
Because in a threat state, you literally have tunnel vision. You lose your peripheral awareness.
Exactly. And this brings us right back to the brittle system. A brittle system is one that has forgotten how to laugh, or, metaphorically forgotten how to enter that safe mode.
It only knows how to repeat yesterday's success. The text had that searing line. Rigid systems do not play. They only repeat. It really challenges the way we look at expertise.
It does.
We tend to think an expert is someone who knows exactly what to do. But this suggests that true adaptation requires the ability to not know, to experiment.
It's the difference between, say, a train and an all-terrain vehicle. A train is incredibly efficient on its rails. It's faster, smoother, carries more.
Sure.
But if you take away the rails, or if a tree falls on the track, the train is useless. It's brittle.
But the ATV?
And the ATV is less efficient, it's bumpier, but it can go anywhere. Play is how we build that ATV capability in our minds.
And the engine of that ATV is variation. The source material makes a huge point about evolution here.
Yes.
Evolution doesn't happen through perfect replication. It happens through mutation, through errors that just happen to be advantageous.
That is the biological reality. I mean, if DNA replicated perfectly every single time, we'd still be single-celled organisms floating around. Variation is the prerequisite for evolution.
So play is how we introduce variation on purpose.
Yes. We try a new move in a game, we test a new joke in a conversation, we mix two colors on a canvas. Most of those little mutations fail. They don't work.
But because we're in play mode, the failure doesn't cost us anything.
Correct. It allows us to, as the text puts it, rehearse possibility.
I love that phrasing, rehearsing possibility. It reminds me of a flight simulator. You put a pilot in a box that mimics reality, but where crashing doesn't result in death.
That's a perfect analogy.
If you never get in the simulator, you only learn from real-world disasters, which is a terrible way to learn.
And yet, look at how we structure modern adult life. We are flying the real plane 24/7. We've stripped away the simulator time because it looks unproductive.
Which leads us to the big adult barrier. Why is it so incredibly hard for us to just play?
The diagnosis in the reading was pretty harsh on that front.
It really was.
Mhm.
It says adults lose access to play because we confuse worth with productivity. We've essentially monetized our own existence.
We have. We live in what the author calls the justification trap. Everything must justify itself with a metric. If I'm going to learn a language, it's for my resume. If I'm going to exercise, it's for my health markers.
Even our hobbies have been co-opted. I mean,
Yeah.
I catch myself doing this all the time.
Huh.
I can't just paint. I have to wonder if I should open an Etsy shop.
Right.
I can't just go for a hike. I have to track my steps.
Yeah.
It's like we don't have permission to just exist in an experience anymore.
That word permission is the key. The text argues that play does not require skill, it requires permission. The barrier isn't that you don't know how to draw. The barrier is that you don't have permission to draw badly.
Because drawing badly violates the competent adult identity.
Exactly. It threatens the brittle system of your ego. We spend so much energy maintaining this heavy armor of, I am a professional, or I am a good parent.
I'm an intelligent person.
Right. That armor requires constant self-monitoring. Am I doing this right? Do I look stupid?
Yeah.
That self-monitoring is exhausting. It's a massive energy leak.
So play is just the act of taking the armor off.
It softens identity. When you're deep in play, think about when you're chasing a dog on the beach, or you're deep into a really silly board game with friends. You aren't thinking about your job title.
No.
You aren't thinking about your mortgage. The self loosens. And that stops the energy drain.
That explains why play feels so restorative, even when it's physically active. I always thought it was weird that I could be exhausted from a day at a desk, but then go play a sport and feel more energy.
It's because you stopped spending energy on defense. You stopped the metabolic cost of holding up the shield.
Right.
And this reminds the whole system that existence is not only about survival. If your whole life is just survival, just meeting obligations, you eventually burn out. You become brittle. Play reminds the biology we are alive and it is safe to be alive.
But I want to play devil's advocate for the listener who's thinking, okay, this sounds great, but I can't just let go of all my responsibilities.
That's cool.
And the source material actually addresses this beautifully. It doesn't advocate for chaos. It talks about the paradox of boundaries.
This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of play. People hear play and they think anarchy, total lack of rules. But the research shows the complete opposite.
Healthy play is bounded.
It's highly bounded. The text uses the phrase, safety allows freedom.
Safety allows freedom. Okay, unpack that.
Well, think about a playground next to a busy highway. If there's no fence, the children are anxious. They stay huddled near the teacher. They don't explore because the risk of death is right there.
It's too close.
But if you put up a sturdy 10-foot fence,
They run wild. They go right up to the edge.
the boundary creates the container for the freedom. You need that magic circle.
The magic circle.
In game design, we talk about the magic circle, the space where the rules of the real world are suspended and the rules of the game apply. Inside the circle, I can bankrupt you in Monopoly, and it's fun. Outside the circle, that's just theft.
So for adults, reclaiming play isn't about abandoning our lives. It's about creating better fences. It's about saying, for this 1 hour, the rules of productivity do not apply. This is the sandbox.
Precisely. And there's a spectrum here. If you have unbounded play, you get anxiety and chaos. If you have over-controlled play, where you're worried about the outcome, you get performance.
And true play is in the middle.
True play sits right in the middle. You define the constraints so that you can ignore the consequences.
I really like that. Chaos, performance, with play in the middle. And that balance feels fragile. It seems like it relies heavily on who we're playing with.
Oh, absolutely.
We should talk about the relational dynamics because the text emphasizes that play is a form of communication.
It's maybe the highest form of communication. It requires attunement.
The section that differentiated between dominance and play really stood out to me.
Yes. Look at the rat studies. Jack Panksepp's work on play in rats is famous for this. If you put two rats together to wrestle, the bigger rat will obviously win most of the time. But if the bigger rat wins 100% of the time, the little rat stops playing. It eventually just refuses to engage.
Because it stops being a game and it starts being a beatdown.
Exactly. So to keep the game going, the bigger rat has to self-handicap. It has to voluntarily let the little rat win about 30% of the time. It's called the 30% rule.
Wow.
The dominant system must relax its dominance to maintain the relationship.
That is a profound lesson for, I don't know, leadership, for parenting. If you are always right, if you always win the argument, you aren't playing. You're dominating. And eventually, other people just leave the table.
Or they become brittle themselves. They stop offering new ideas. They stop taking risks. They just comply. And compliance is not play. Compliance is survival.
So true play requires this mutual agreement to be vulnerable. It needs consent.
It requires responsiveness. You have to be watching the other person's eyes. Are they still having fun? Did I push that joke too hard? That micro-calibration, that is high-level neural processing. You are constantly reading the safety signals of the other mammal.
Which is why play builds empathy. You literally cannot play with someone if you aren't paying attention to their internal state.
And this is why the decline of play in our culture is, I think, genuinely concerning for social cohesion. If we lose the ability to play fight, to disagree, to banter, to wrestle with ideas without trying to destroy the other person,
We lose the ability to coexist.
we just end up in a war of my brittle system versus your brittle system.
That's the difference between a debate and a playful conversation. In a debate, I'm trying to kill your idea. In a playful conversation, we're tossing the idea back and forth to see what shape it is.
And that's where the aha moments happen. That's where innovation comes from. It never comes from the person trying to defend their fortress. It comes from the person who says, what happens if we turn this upside down?
So bringing this all together then, we've established play regulates the nervous system. It prevents us from becoming brittle. It fuels our ability to connect. But what's the takeaway for the listener who feels like they've just forgotten how to do this? The text distinguishes between escapism and play. I think that's a critical final distinction to make.
It is, because when we tell people to play, they think, oh, I'll just watch 3 hours of Netflix. But the source material argues that is often escapism. Escapism is numbing out.
Right.
It's reducing input to zero so you can rest. That has its place, for sure, but it isn't play.
Play's active.
Play is engagement without pressure. You are leaned in, not leaned back. You are creating, moving, solving, joking. That feeling of time dilation, that flow state where hours feel like minutes, that only happens when you're actively engaged.
It's the difference between zoning out and zoning in.
And the argument is pretty stark. Life that cannot play eventually hardens. If you want to keep your mind flexible, your relationships resilient, and your problem-solving creative, you cannot treat play as a reward you get after the work is done.
You have to treat it as the fuel.
It's the fuel that makes the work possible. It's the oil in the engine. Without it, the gears just grind and eventually seize up.
Children play to learn the world. Adults play to remember how. That line from the text really stayed with me.
It's beautiful, isn't it? When we're kids, everything is new. We have to play to map the territory.
But as adults, we think we have the map. We think we know how the world works, so we stop exploring.
But the world changes. The territory shifts. And if we rely on our old, brittle map, we get lost. Play is the act of updating the map. It's remembering that we are still learners.
So the challenge for everyone listening isn't to go buy a toy or force yourself to be fun. It's to look at where you are rigid. Where are you defending a brittle system? And what would happen if you just built a little fence, created some safety, and gave yourself permission to mess it up?
Rehearse the possibility. See what happens.
That's the deep dive for this week. As always, thank you for trusting us with your attention.
Keep playing.
We'll see you next time.